Morning, everybody. It's the morning after Fleetwood, 2-1 defeat. Second defeat on the bounce, and obviously it's a little bit disappointing. And I think I'm not going to do something here that analyses the game, because I think the game was analysed enough personally last night. I think just we'll touch on it briefly, but I think there was a lot of reaction during the game. Some for, some against the side. But for me, Michael's comments always tend to put a cap on it, and they let you know, in my opinion, whether you've been reasonable or not. I think if you've been heavily critical of the team throughout the 90 minutes, and then Michael Appleton comes out and says we've played well, given the type of character that Michael Appleton is, you probably want to readjust or rethink the game in a wider context, because Michael Appleton is not a bullshit merchant. He's not going to come out and say, thought we were great when we weren't. So last night, it was there for all to see. There was lots of different opinion. Thought in the first half we weren't bad, but we probably had the better of the chances up until their goal. Certainly Regan Paul's header was a cracker. But ultimately, we weren't clinical enough. They had more shots on target. They had more shots generally. And so probably, the relative inexperience of the side playing together, we came to the fore. And I don't think we had that pivot in midfield. The Grant or the Bridcut. Greatest respect to Jones. I think he played well, but I think he proved he's an 8 or 6 or 4, depending on where you put the holding midfielder. So it is what it is. In the second half, I thought we came out and we were poor. I'm going to be honest, we were poor for 15, 20 minutes. And that's when I put a tweet on, which is kind of where I'm going with this morning, where I said collapsing, because they scored their second with ease. And I just felt at that point that it had an air of Sunderland at home, Portsmouth at home, where we just weren't composed. The second goal massively seemed to have knocked us. Bad decisions, rush decisions. Some of the choices that we made, even in the final third, were very, very poor. And that was, so I genuinely felt we were collapsing in the context of the game. I'm not saying it in the context of the season. Thought I made that very, very clear before the game that, I felt this is going to be a tough time, really challenging with the injuries. And I know we got Morton back and it's great. I know Jackson was in last night, arguably man of the match, and was really good. But it's that pivot. It's that holding midfield role. Everything goes around it. And what you've got to have there is a player who knows when to turn his back to goal and go backwards, and a player who knows when to go sideways or attack him. And I think to a degree, Max Sanders, when he came on, he looked to be that player for me. There was a couple of times where he just looked composed. And no disrespect to James Jones, I think he's an attacking midfielder. It just didn't work for him in that 6 role. They won the midfield battle. They had 3 in midfield, and the 2 wingers. The wingers got at our fullbacks. 1 or 2 players had an off day. It happens. Teo Eden didn't have a great game. Morgan Rogers didn't have a great game. That's being honest. Okay, that's being honest. We lost the game. I thought we probably deserved to lose it. In the context of the season, who knows what it might mean. But if we had won that game and climbed into the playoffs at this stage, I probably feel that there would be a lot of people going, brilliant, we're on a roll. And people put far too much stock in things like form. I see people picking a form table and saying, tweeting a form table like the last 6 games and Lincoln City are 15th or 16th or whatever, with eyes as if to say, whoa, we're on the slide. Form is nothing. There's only one form table that matters. I've said it a million times. I'll say it a million times more. It's the 46 game form table. That's the one that matters. And if after 46 games, Lincoln City are in the top 6, irrespective of where we have been at other points in the season, that will be an achievement. Yes, some people will feel disappointed because we were top and, missed penalties against Doncaster and Peterborough probably would have still had us top now. But, that happened, unfortunately. So I think what's prompted me to do the video, it's not the analysis. I've got a busy day today. I'll be entirely honest. I've got absolutely loads to do. So I'm taking a relatively short walk. The dog's not interested. Charlie, come on. But it's the reaction after the game, and I'm not saying that this is aggressive at me or anything like that, but there was a lot of reaction to me, which some in my DMs, some by direct tweets, that just had me scratching my head, because in the space of 2 minutes, I was reading something that criticised me for being too pro club and something that criticised me for not being pro club enough. And I think, yeah, I've got to accept that. I think because I put my opinion out there, both through official club channels now, of course, which kind of brings a bit of extra responsibility. That hair's annoying me. If I take that off, look, oh, that's not too bad. I think, there is a little bit more attention paid probably to what I see. But that tweet where I said collapse certainly gained quite a lot of people coming to me and saying, you're out of order with that. I think we're not collapsing. The wheels haven't come off. It's a tough time, injuries, all that sort of thing. I find it a little bit of a shame that people have judged me on one word that I've written rather than the 2,000 I put out at the end of the game, which kind of cover the game up in context. I'm going to come back to that, Pete. I can see that. It's a shame. I write 2,000 words to describe the game. I'll write one-word reactions during the game in the same way that commentators make comments about a period of play within 5 minutes. So, just to clarify, I don't think we're particularly collapsing. We're going through a bad run of form. Next 6 games will tell you if we are or not. If we are, we are. Whether we were in the National League, 5 years ago or not, is partly irrelevant. It's where we are now. If we finish in the top 6, it will be a huge achievement. If we finish outside the top 6 and in the top 10, in the context of the season, it won't be. But if you were to stand back and say, would you have taken that at the beginning of the season? Yes. So there we go. I think the other thing then is this, the extreme negative, which is kind of the other side of it. And I describe one as happy clappy and the other as extreme negative, the glass half full, the glass half empty. And you guys know, I've got some people here who are commenting, and all reasonable people with reasonable comments, which I'll come back to. But if you go on social media, wherever you get your news, whether it's Lincoln City Banter, whether it's the Clanford, whether it's Twitter, Lincoln City Chat, Vitals, wherever, full well that if you go on after a game, which people are going to be saying not good enough. Which people are going to be slagging off certain players. Who's going to be saying Morgan Rogers is shit, because he say Morgan Rogers is shit every time he doesn't score a goal. Who's going to criticise Eden, because a lot of fans get a preconception, refuse to change their mind, and they just wait until the situation fits their narrative, and then they come out on social media. And I notice John Battersby, loads of respect for John, always very, very reflective, very, very balanced. I think last night he called one poster out for never posting anything positive. And he'd gone back through Banter to try and find where this person had. I don't know whether he had or he hadn't. I'm not passing comment on the other poster at all. But it is recognisable that certain people's comments will always come out. And some people kind of start their comments with, I'm not negative, but, and then they go into negative, which is a little bit like when people start a sentence, I'm not being funny, you are being funny. I'm not racist, but you are racist. But do you know what I mean? It's that same sort of thing. So I just think some balance is needed. But I do think that finding the middle ground as a football fan on these days is hard. Because I think if you find the middle ground, you're leaving yourself open to both extremes. And that's probably reflected in society, isn't it, as well? When things like Brexit come up, or things like COVID vaccinations come up, if you try and take the middle ground and see it from both sides, rather than placating both sides, you end up angering both sides, because people are so fervent in their opinions. Sorry, I have to touch this post. It's the ritual, it's the halfway point. But people are so fervent in their opinions, I think, that trying to take the middle ground and trying to be balanced is sometimes tough. So I stand by my comments. I stand by the collapsing. At that point of the game, I thought we were. Michael did something and changed it. After the game, Michael suggested himself that we'd been poor for 65 minutes and that some people let him down, which is kind of justification, I think, up to that stage. But I won't call the team out for no reason. I'm not going to moan about a lack of transfer activity, for instance. I've seen that. That's quite a popular one. I'm not going to moan about that because I don't think there was. I think we made the transfer decisions that we made with a view to moving forward. This was never a one-year plan to get out of League One. It was always, Michael said, by the time his first contract had finished, which was the summer of 2023, he imagined that we would be in the Championship. That was where he wanted to put us. He's ahead of schedule at the minute in terms of a promotion push. And if we are to go into next season in League One, and that's the worst case scenario, so we've got a squad that's building, we've got a squad that's gelling, and we'll go back and we'll get additional loan players, far fewer, by the way. You know, take Johnson, Palmer, and Rodgers out that side. It's more or less our entire own team. I know Morton came on and scored. So you could probably see, the majority of the squad being our own squad. That's a development. And, if someone had said in August, and I don't care what anyone says about where we've been, if someone had said to me in August, worst case scenario is you stay in League One, I would have scratched the word worst out and put best. That was the best case scenario going into this season. 40-degree budget cut. Saturday, Tuesday. Entire squad churn and turnover. The best case scenario was stay in League One. So we are overachieving. That's fact. Sunderland are 6 points behind us, and they've got a player plays out on the wing for them who probably earns as much in a week than any 8 or 9 of our players that you could select. That's what I genuinely believe. So maybe we should beat Fleetwood. Maybe we should be beating Plymouth. Maybe they're the teams that are comparable with us. But if we should be beating those, we should be losing to the Portsmouths, and we should be losing to the Hulls, and we shouldn't be fighting where we are. So we are. That's fact. And in football, you win games and you lose games. And at the moment, we're losing games which we could have lost earlier in the season and be winning now, and everyone will be excited. And I get how I think results influence people's mood. So if you win, you feel like you're going to win in the next game, and if you lose, you feel like you're going to lose. I felt pissed off last night. I felt pissed off on Saturday. And do you know what? It's not at the team particularly, because you look at those players, some of them, and I don't care, again, kind of contradicting myself, what Michael says, some of them were tired. Anthony Scully looks tired. I think Morgan Rodgers at times he looked a little bit tired. In midfield, James Jones shouldn't, but I thought he looked a little laboured at times. At fullback, Eden, he just looked tired again last night. And that's, they're playing Saturday, Tuesday. I say that to my partner, Fee. Because footballers should be able to play bloody 180 minutes in a week. But, it's such a tiring game. Yeah, we're lacking depth. But the point is, if we'd gone for depth, we wouldn't have strength in the side, because we would have watered down the players that we could have signed. And Michael hasn't signed players to go up this season. We could have done what Danny and Nicky did, and that was one strategy with plenty of money behind them, signing Lee Angle and James Brown for the run-in, and not using them. Drew huge criticism, waste of budget. Now people are saying, oh, well, we should be signing players like that to get us through the last few weeks of the season. But we wouldn't be saying that if George Grant and Liam Bridcut hadn't been injured. We'd go, why did we sign XYZ? What's the point of him being around the squad paying his money? So it is a balance. Everyone is entitled to an opinion. Everybody is entitled to an opinion, but the only ones that I will respect are the ones which are subject to change, are the ones where people will go, I was wrong if they're wrong, not just wait for another instance where they can be proven right. And I'll refer, I don't think she's on today, I'll refer to Kate Jackson, because Kate was hugely critical of Michael Appleton last season, to a point where she was receiving quite a lot of abuse on social media. This season, quite rightly as well, held her hands up on social media and gone, I was wrong. I respect that. I respect people's opinions when they are born out of fact, when they're born out of evidence that's not twisted to their own particular needs. I changed my mind on players. I changed my mind on systems and styles. I do that because I'm open-minded. Because if I see something and it affects a previous opinion that I've had, I'll change that opinion. I don't care if people call me two-faced or a turncoat. I don't care, because for me, that's what opinion should be. It should always be open to change. If you're not open to change with an opinion, then it's not really an opinion. It's just, it's just rhetoric. It's almost like politics. I don't get it. I don't get it. So I don't make any apologies for either being positive or negative. Not sure who I need to apologise for or to. We were collapsing on 65 minutes. We did look like we were going to lose the game heavily. If that's been misinterpreted as collapsing through the season, then I understand that. But I would hope that people know me better enough now than to make one-word sweeping generalisations about 46-game season based on 5 minutes of football on a Tuesday night in the middle of February. I really would hope that. And I would hope that when I write one word, people would hold off on, certainly on the DMs, until they've read the 2,000 words that sum up the game afterwards. That's my thoughts. Right, let's have a look at some comments, because there have been plenty flying in. And so if I miss yours, I apologise. Okay, am I still recording? I've just had a phone call. There we go. Okay. So first of all, Steve Bond, do we need to dip into the free transfer market from cover for anywhere? No, absolutely not. I don't think that we do at all. I think what we just need to do is get some players up to fitness. You've seen with Max Sanders, for instance, played one game since November, struggling for fitness. That's why he's been eased in gently. Sign a free agent now and struggling for fitness or struggling for match fitness for a month or two. Might not be up to match fitness until end of March, beginning of April, end of April. Pointless, sadly. The one that I would like to have seen a sign probably would have been Mancien, but that's with hindsight, because if Bridcut doesn't get injured and Grant doesn't get injured, Mancien doesn't play, and then it's wasted budget. And if it's a choice between signing Mancien and wasting that budget for 6 months, or signing Max Sanders, integrating him into the side now and having him around the squad for the next 3 years impressing, I'll take the latter. You've got to look at the end game, I think. Lots of people saying morning, so good morning to you all. Pete, Dom, Nick, Cornell, good morning. Sam, good evening. Over in New Zealand, Nick says, shouldn't be concerned at all. We're miles ahead of where we are. We're overachieving. Even if we slip out the playoffs, it's still a successful season. It is. It's in context. Nobody would, or sorry, a large portion of supporters wouldn't class it as a successful season if we finish 7th or 8th. It would be hard to class it as a successful season. I think we'd look at the 82-83 season and the 06-07 season and go, it's another one where we've struggled and fallen away. I think the problems in those seasons were very different. 82-83, lack of board support, haven't had that. 06-07, lack of plan B. Not sure that's the case this season, because I think plan A is good enough. I just think the issue is, I'll be honest, I don't even think it's losing George Grant. I think the issue is losing Liam Bridcut at this stage, because I think he's the heartbeat of the team. It's that 6 role, or the 4, or whatever you want to call the central defensive midfield. It's absolutely crucial to the way we play. The number of times you would see Bridcut back in the area making a challenge, and I saw criticism, he gives fouls away here, or he's a dangerous tackler. He's not given a penalty away at all, never does. He'll win the ball when the defence don't, and I think the defence look exposed without him. And I think George can cover there, so losing George is more of a blow for me in terms of the cover for Bridcut than it is in the wider context of the team, because I think we've got creativity going forward. You would always rather have George Grant play. There isn't any doubt about that. You'd always rather have him in the side than anyone else. He's one of our top players and he's a big loss. But I think if Bridcut plays, you can cover the loss of Grant going forward. And I think that was proven by the chances we created last night. I thought we did create good chances last night. We're just not quite scoring them. I think Morton will make a big difference. Henry, you're right, pal. Speaking of composed, thought TJ was a usual breath of fresh air when he came on. I thought he was. I actually thought Regan Poole had a decent game. Quite like Regan Poole. I think he will. It's what I call with him the Tom Pett syndrome. I think over the course of the next 6 months, he'll settle into the side. And by the time he plays next season, be looking at Regan Poole and going, he's a hell of a player. But I just think with a team like us, we don't play a set routine. So if you're a long ball team and you're a right back and you come in to play right back in a long ball team and you said, pump the ball into the channel, doesn't take long to settle into that, does it? Do you know what I mean? Like if you go into Northampton and you're a centre back at Northampton, what have I got to do, boss? Edit away, kick it away, kick someone if they come near you. Settled. I think with a team like us, where we have quite intricate passing patterns, we have very definite styles of play, players need to be on the same wavelength for it to come off. I think it takes longer for teams to settle, for players to settle rather. And to a degree, with respect to Danny and Nicky, we were classed as a long ball side, but in that final third, it was very much not the case. And there was lots of passing patterns down the flank. I remember early doors with the likes of Sam Habergam and Nathan Arnold. You had to have an understanding with the player ahead of you. And I think that was Tom Peck came in on the wing. And that was partly why I think he struggled as well to settle. So Matt Walker, poor with the ball, poor decisions, midfield looked lost, soft. Sanders must start on Saturday. Yeah, I've tipped Sanders to start, I think, the last 2 or 3 games now. I really like the look of the kid. He's got to be fit, but I really like the look of him. I think the issue you have there is the protection of the back four, and I'd be hungrier for Sanders to start if it was Jackson and Walsh. I think Monsman's struggling at the minute. Not quite sure why. I think he's struggling a little bit. There's moments where he just switches off. It'll come. It's a spell. It's a stint. I'm not saying Monsman's a bad player. It's ridiculous. But when you look at some of the players we were raving about at the beginning of the season, Monsman and Rowan in particular, and how quickly things have changed. James Jones was, he was getting quite a lot of praise. These players they're struggling now. They'll come good again. They're good players. They've proved it already. So, yeah, but there was poor decisions. Let's have a look. Ryan Whelan would bitten your hand off to be in this situation at the start of the season. 100%. If we'd been losing games at the start of the season and climbed to this position, everyone would be brilliant. Everyone would be praising us. So it's all about context, isn't it? And again, as I've said, and I'm going to come to a point from Pete in a minute, that form table means nothing. Absolutely nothing at all. It just means that you've played certain teams in a certain order, and some of them might have been tougher than others. And Pete says that form tables are relevant to a season overall, as XG are to a match scoreline. Yeah, thanks, Pete. Trust you. XG doesn't affect a scoreline, so he's quite right. Against Plymouth, we had better XG than they did, and we didn't win the game. So it doesn't matter. It just gives you an indication of how that whole game has gone. Whereas a form table gives you an indication of how a 6-game spell has gone. I can understand the point, but don't criticise my XG because I'll get busy with the block button. Brian Rundle, we can't talk about what could have happened, what has happened, what can happen in the future. We have to look forward. All games are winnable, however tough they may be. We've proven that. We've beaten nearly everybody in our division. Sam White says this is still acceptable given COVID with our budget and injuries, 100%. Yep. Emma Lou Sterling, injuries are hampering us at the minute. Really need our key players back. 100%. Bridcut, Walsh is a big loss. Grant, put those 3 in that side last night. Honestly, I don't think we lose. Genuinely don't. Steve Bond, I've answered that. Sam, Emma Lou, Richard Cross, logically, we should get most of our squad fit for the last 10 games, which is where we'll need, and we'll pick up points during this difficult time. Yeah, it's like a season isn't all sweetness like rainbows and toffee, is it? At times you do have to dig in. Michael said that at the beginning of the season. There will be times where we have to dig in. I thought it'd come earlier than February. I think if it had come earlier and we'd been out of contention and we were battling on the edge of the top 10, then maybe it would be easier to bear. If we were losing to teams like Sunderland and Portsmouth, not games that you think we should have won, fair enough. I personally had us down to lose at Plymouth anyway. So it's really Swindon and Fleetwood, the two that disappointed. The draw against Accrington was a useful point. We beat Wigan. So let's get this in context. We're talking about 2 games. 2 games on Tuesday nights. That's what we're kind of, that's where the criticism's come in. And one of them we drew when we played atrociously. Cornell, we can't have the negative vibe because the players and manager don't need it. They need support and backing. They do. And if we were in the ground, Cornell, they'd hear it. And they'd see it. The likes of Nick and the 617 and 85, 90% of the supporters would be behind them. Unfortunately, one boo's always louder than 1,000 cheers, and you would have got some boos last night. It's that simple from people who probably don't understand football all that much. So I am going to finish in a minute. Thank you, Reese. I have got that. It's a bit put people moaning about you. You will be the same people listening to a live video and podcast looking for information and opinions. You do a great job. Thank you. I wasn't looking for praise, but I appreciate that, Reese. Cheers, pal. Brian Rundle, positive news about Morton. Massive news in the context of the season. He's back early. He looked very good as well. So I'm quite happy with that. I thought it was a good cameo. I think we're probably done. Gav, who kind of missed seeing at the football. Hope you're all right, pal. Win together, draw together, lose together. Absolutely correct. That's how it should be. 100%. Matt Drury, don't lose the dog in the mist. The dog is actually eager to get home. He's up there. He hasn't had his dinner yet. He hasn't had a groom either, unfortunately. I'm struggling to get him in. So, right, well, there we go. And Ben finally says, hopefully we can find something positive to talk about tomorrow. I'm looking forward to talking about you tipping over a load of solvent in your bedroom so that it smells, and laughing at that. So that'll be quite good fun. Look, thank you. 25 minutes of me waffling on, 55 people thinking that is a positive start to their morning. I really appreciate that. I'm not going to go and write about the top casinos in Macau and how digital creatives need to plan financially for the future before teaching year 9 students about interview techniques and interviewing Remy Howarth. So it should be a good day. Wherever you are, enjoy your day. Don't let football ruin it. Don't argue on social media. Respect other people's opinions. Have your own. Make sure they are subject to change. And together, we'll get through this season. And when we do, we'll be able to look back on it and think that it was fucking brilliant, no matter what happens. Take care. Cheers. Bye.